Hey there folks, I'm Mark, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard BREAKDOWN. I think the best way to describe this week would be a deflation of expectations. Yeah, I knew this week wouldn't quite have the same impact as what happened with album releases earlier, but I was open to the possibility of larger hits in the Hot 100 from acts like ScHoolboy Q, or Pink, or even AJR. Now, thankfully for a change, we mostly missed that, and seemed to walk away with about as good of a result as we could possibly hope for. Although with still more quiet weeks projected ahead, it begs the question where the hell the Hot 100 could even go in the next week or so. And I say all this specifically with an eye for the top 10, because to my surprise, Old Town Road by Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus still held on to the number one, mostly thanks to streaming and the sort of radio swell that I could have never possibly predicted for this sort of meme song. I didn't expect it to have this sort of momentum, and I think it might still be vulnerable, but I gotta give it props for fighting back Me by Taylor Swift featuring Brendan Urie up to number 2, which had an even more aggressive radio surge, beat it on sales, and was right behind it on streaming. Make no mistake, this is a two-horse race, and I do think that Taylor Swift can take the number 1 if its sales and radio holds up while Lil Nas X starts to slip, but this leaves us on like Wow by Post Malone in a tough situation. Pushed down to number 3, even as the radio peaked and the sales and streaming started to slip. It'll probably wind up getting eclipsed by Sucker by the Jonas Brothers up to number 4, given how that song is still utterly dominant on the radio and has pretty good sales. The streaming's not there, but if the margin's big enough, it really won't matter. Now this pushes over Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee down to number 5, as it's declining across the board, and similar state of affairs for 7 Rings by Ariana Grande down at number 6, as it's got even more radio, but it won't hold up for weaker sales and streaming. And also in the same boat, we got Without Me by Halsey down at number 7, which might have slightly better sales and more radio, but the streaming somehow is even worse. Then we got the slight decline for Dancing with a Stranger by Sam Smith and Normani down to number 8, and I'm not sure how this song will behave for the next couple of weeks, because radio momentum is still there, but the streaming's non-existent, and the sales looks like it might have stalled out. Now what gives me a little bit more confidence is that amidst all this, Bad Guy by Billie Eilish has remained stable, mostly thanks to rock-solid streaming and slight boost on the radio compensating for some weakening sales. For this song, it's not about making that run for the top, but staying stable while everything else around it collapses. And finally, we've got Talk by Khalid down at number 10, but I don't predict it's gonna fall for long. It actually seems pretty robust in all channels, so unfortunately, this might stick around. Yay. Anyway, our losers and dropouts, with the non-surprise of Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby gone again, along with This Zip by Scotty McCreery, as well as the expected departure of Better Now by Post Malone, which frankly had a way better shelf life than I personally expected. But it's hard to look at our current crop of losers and say that I had much in the way of expectations at all for any of these. I mean, the best of these songs is You Should See Me in a Crown by Billie Eilish down at number 80, and considering it was only back thanks to the album bomb in the first place, the surprise is really that it stuck around this long. Beyond that, we had the expected continued losses for Kill This Love by Blackpink down to 100, and SOS by the late Avicii featuring Aloe Black to 99, as well as Racks in the Middle by the late Nipsey Hussle featuring Roddy Ricch and Hit Boy continuing down to 63. And beyond that, look, I'm not going to complain that Sanguine Paradise by Lil Uzi Vert finally saw drop to 42, or that Mixed Personalities by YNW Melly featuring Kanye West went down to 76, or that I've Been Waiting by the late Lil Peep, I Love McConan, and featuring Fall Out Boy went to 78. But the biggest relief for me came to seeing Earth by Lil Dicky collapse down to 41. It's an utterly atrocious song. I went on at length about it last week. I'm just happy that it looks like it's going to tank in the same way that Freaky Friday didn't tank last year. Now when we get to our gains and returning entries, there seems to be less of a story, which might as well be the biggest narrative of 2019's Hot 100 or music scene thus far, with 24/7 by Meek Mill featuring LMA being pushed as the next single for obvious reasons as it re-enters at 97, and Num Num Juice by ScHoolboy Q back at 95 thanks to the album release. And if you go to our gains, you can also see some of this for Pink and Walk Me Home up to 49. Yes, I'll be getting to that album as soon as I can. I am planning on reviewing it. But beyond Beyond that, well, Shug by DaBaby got another boost to 27. Hey Look Ma, I Made It by Panic at the Disco picked up residual thanks to Taylor Swift with a boost to 66. And Shot of Flow by NLE Choppa got a boost off the debut to 86, because these sort of short-lived borderline freestyles, they always get a boost the second week. No, what surprised me more was the gain for Before I Let Go by Beyonce going to 65, mostly thanks to good sales and a bit of radio. And Whiskey Glasses by Morgan Wallen surging up to 33. And in that case, I honestly had to check to see if this is a mistake, but apparently he's got great radio and solid sales. So it looks like Nashville is giving this gurgling track a boost of all things before it's inevitably forgotten by pretty much everyone. Anyway, we got a crop of new arrivals, and given how bad some of these are, I would hesitate to call any of them all that healthy. But let's start off with number 98, Stop Snitchin' by YG.
Nigga hoe, nigga bitch, nigga snitch, nigga hoe, nigga bitch, nigga.
So I'll be honest, I'm surprised that YG is coming out with an album so quickly after his project last year, which, yeah, I didn't really like, but did have a charting hit with Big Bang, so this could either be striking when the iron's hot, or diverting back to a sound that's won a more critical acclaim. And honestly, while I've got no idea how well this will move, outside of the collaboration with Nipsey Hussle, this is probably a YG song, one of the first I've enjoyed in a long time. Also because it drills into the concept of calling out snitches with an efficiency and energy that stays on topic and winds up being catchy as sin. Yeah, it's not quite as groovy as the stuff I've dug from YG in the past with all the jittery pianos, but the faster tempo and his natural sense of humor, it lends the song a bounce that's kind of effective, even if it does feel basic as all hell. It also does feel a little bit short, and I'm not sure the melodic flow quite works on the second verse, but overall, it's brutish, but it's effective. Good stuff. I like this. Number 96, Love Me Anyway by Pink featuring Chris Stapleton. I swear, it seems like the mainstream pop acts of the 2000s have realized that Chris Stapleton is a hired gun that will give their material a considerable boost. And hilarious thing, they aren't even wrong. It worked wonders with Justin Timberlake's Say Something last year, and I'd argue it's really damn effective with Pink here too. Now, I'll talk more about the song directly when I review the album pretty soon, but what's telling is that this is absolutely more of a country song than a pop one, anchoring the pianos and the strings with plenty of pedal steel as Pink pleads to ask if she fails time and time again whether he would love her again. And what's telling is that Chris Stapleton echoes that same insecurity in his vocals, and he's got the soul to make it sound legitimately convincing in the back and forth. Now again, I do think that this song's a little short. A bridge could have really put this over the top, and the vocal pickup for Pink might be a little bit close. It's a production quibble, but otherwise, yeah, it's a highlight from the album. Great song. Happy it's charting. Number 94, Knockin' Boots by Luke Bryan.
Boots need knocking, knocking boots.
The fact that there are now ways for Chris Stapleton to get on the Hot 100 means that we shouldn't need to have Luke Bryan anymore, right? And I say that with the acknowledgement that, yes, I actually think that this is a step up from most of what he put on the last album. Yeah, the vocals sound really overproduced, and the snap and the clap percussion is clunky, and only highlights the utter lack of good bass lines that have crippled so much of bro country in retrospect. But you know what? There is some more jaunty energy that might even be more organic to this song than most of what he's released in the past 5 years. The larger problem, however, though, it's the same thing as you get the past 5 years. The lyrics. Formless, list-making bro country for which we've heard hundreds of times before, with the most interesting reference coming from Fishin' in the Dark by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which might sound kind of brittle in its pickups going back to it, but it is a considerably better song than this, and I have no idea why bro country acts do it, referencing older neo-traditional country songs that remind me of something I'd much rather listen to than that. So yeah, go listen to Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. This song, it'll be forgotten really quickly. Number 92, Power is Power by SZA, The Weeknd, and Travis Scott. So here's the thing, I'm not really a Game of Thrones fan, mostly because I wasn't really all that fond of the underlying nihilism in the books, and it's a petty thematic conceit that's never really left the show either. But look, I get the show's popularity. What I don't understand is how the show gets to the point where it's so popular that it demands multiple compilation of hip-hop and pop songs behind it that have got a tenuous connection to the show at best, and no connection sonically to the fantasy setting that's inspiring them. But apparently, this collaboration between SZA, The Weeknd, and Travis Scott got big enough to chart, and honestly, it's not bad. But it does remind me of the Black Panther soundtrack songs, and that's more about focus on setting a vibe for the original work rather than standing as a song on its own, between the tagline that's pulled directly from the show, to the hollow, blown-out tones and the glitchy bass beat. Hell, the production actually winds up giving The Weeknd the sort of dark, propulsive gravitas he's been seeking out for a while now, and SZA fits pretty comfortably enough in the same murk, honestly to my surprise, which leaves us with Travis Scott. Now, in terms of his vocal timbre, it kind of works, and for the most part he actually stays on topic, but you would think it would not be hard to avoid referencing the modern world by mentioning bullets, but he does. Now, granted, given the Starbucks cup that wound up in frame on Game of Thrones a couple days ago, maybe that's apropos, but in the meantime, you know what, I kind of dig this. It's not really sure how well this is going to age or whether it's even going to be a hit, but it's alright. I like it. Number 90, Light It Up by Marshmello, Chris Brown, and Tyga.
Light it up, I'm drunk and I'm throwing middle fingers up. Yeah.
By now, the controversy has long eclipsed any conversation surrounding this song, where churches went out on a limb to say they were disappointed that Marshmello was working with perennial pains in my ass, Chris Brown and Tyga, and then Chris Brown said he wishes churches got hit by a bus, because apparently his cocaine budget has overtaken any public relations spending, like it always has. Now, regardless of any of that, Chris Brown and Tyga have always brought out the worst parts of each other in all their collaborations, so I had zero expectations for this, which is kind of appropriate, because I mean, Marshmello's production minus any sort of consistent drop, it basically sounds like a watery ripoff from DJ Mustard from 5 years ago with an okay G-Funk line, which might be another reason why the song sounds so damn obnoxious when you consider our singers. And it's not even Tyga this time around. I mean, he's sleazy and basic as a rapper, but for as much as he's rhyming words with themselves, he actually is rhyming coherently. Chris Brown, meanwhile, continues to force rhymes as he tells your girl to close her mouth as she's facing him, even as his entire second verse degenerates into nothingness. Really, this isn't good. The most I can praise here is the production, which deserves better artist, which is not the case for number 85, CHopstix by ScHoolboy Q and Travis Scott. I swear, this song was already picked clean before Crash Top even dropped. The sort of song that was the internet collectively deciding was trash in record time. And to be fair, while I don't quite think it's terrible, it's not good either by any stretch. The warping oscillation against the rickety trap beat before Travis Scott delivers one of his laziest ever hooks. It's no surprise this is branded as the cheap commercial sellout in record time. And while I actually mostly like ScHoolboy Q's flow on the song, there's no getting around how basic and banal his lyrics feel. The sort of hookup where even he sounds bored. And while that kind of might fit within the larger context of the album, as a single, this is utterly inert, it's lifeless. Not nearly as terrible as it's been advertised, but I can't get behind it as remotely good or even passable. So yeah. Next, number 69, Baila, Baila, Baila by Ozuna, Daddy Yankee, J Balvin, Farruko, and Anuel AA. Okay, seriously, we don't need a Tebote Part 2. I have no idea why they thought shoving 5 reggaeton acts in the same song would be a good idea, other than make another overstuffed posse cut, especially as a remix of an Ozuna song. Now, to be fair, this is actually better than Tebote. For one, it's not over long, with a little bit more upbeat melody courtesy of the piano, even if the groove is as colorless and formulaic as ever. And that leaves our artist. And look, I get the point of starting strong with Daddy Yankee before the monotones of J Balvin and Farruko click in, and Anuel AA starts his auto-tune braying, but it kind of kills any incentive I have to listen to more of the song, especially when the content collapses into beyond trying to pick up this hot girl who was burned in bad relationships in the past, but now one of these 5 could possibly fill that void. And if they have much in way of game or smoothness, that'd be one thing, but I'm not hearing the appeal or even much beyond vocal timbre to tell these guys apart. I don't know, it's not bad, but I don't see it being interesting enough to stick around. Which leaves us with number 67, Floating by ScHoolboy Q featuring 21 Savage. So I didn't really say much about this song when I reviewed Crash Talk, mostly because the discordant keys kind of overwhelmed any rational thoughts I might have about the rest of the song. And yeah, I really still can't stand the production, but it's not like ScHoolboy's verse or his hook are all that good in his abrasive flexing. But then we get 21 Savage. And again, I keep trying to give this guy some credit, but his verses these days seem to fall in a weird gray zone between genuine improvements and menace and some utterly ridiculous bars that break the mood at any time. And this verse is unfortunately more the latter, where he talks about girls putting hickeys on his dick, having her best friend nibble him, and then punching girls if they try to kiss him. Classy. So yeah, there might be a little bit more going on in comparison with CHopstix. I might like ScHoolboy's hook and the chorus a little better, but not much. And this is still not good. And that was our week. And man, the best fell out fast, with Love Me Anyway by Pink featuring Chris Stapleton taking that spot, and honorable mention going to Stop Snitchin' by YG. I mean, what can I say? I dig the intensity. Now the worst, honestly, for me, I'm inclined to make this a three-way tie, but I think I'm going to go with CHopstix by ScHoolboy Q and Travis Scott as the worst, with Floating with 21 Savage as the dishonorable mention. Believe me, I wanted to give this to Chris Brown, but I gotta be honest with myself, Marshmello's production just saved it. Next up, see, I have no idea. We got a week before the possibility of Tyler the Creator unleashing something on the Hot 100, and the upcoming week of releases seems kind of scant, so maybe we can get a breather? I don't know, we'll see what happens. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown associated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.